Hello learners, so today we will just continue our discussion with kinematics. Okay? So last time, I introduced you with motion, with kinematics. So we define motion, and then after that, we talk about the early ideas. And then, na-discuss ko din yung speed, and average speed. So we define average speed as the total distance covered over total time elapsed. Right? I think doon tayo nag-end, So today, we will just continue it. We'll talk about velocity. Okay? Velocity and later acceleration. Tapos i-analyze natin yung mga graph ng position versus time graph, velocity versus time graph. Okay? Yun lang muna. Okay, so pag sinabi mo class velocity, it is the speed and direction. Okay? So, pag in-specify mo yung rate of motion and at the same time, yung direction niya, where the object is heading, then you are talking about velocity. Okay, so yun yung pinaka-main difference ng speed and velocity. Yung direction. So speed, walang direction. Velocity, merong direction. Okay, based from that difference between speed and velocity, pwede ba natin sabihin that, let's say a car moving at, let's say 16 meter per second, at a constant speed, pero changing yung velocity. Pwede ba yun? Okay. A car moving at a constant speed, but has a change in velocity. Is it possible? What do you think? Okay, so possible yun, Kahit constant yung speed, pwedeng changing yung velocity. Alright? As long as the car is changing its direction. Okay ba yan? So again, yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa, speed and velocity. So speed, wala siyang direction, scalar yun, while velocity has a direction, so ang tawag doon is vector, mathematical object with direction. Okay? So constant speed pero changing yung velocity, so pwede yun, provided that the car is changing its direction. Okay? Magiging constant lang ang velocity class ng isang, let's say, a car. Magiging constant lang yung velocity niya kapag yung direction niya at yung speed niya is not changing. Let's say, 10 meter per second. Tapos, towards east. Hindi nagbabago yung direction. Yun, pwede mong sabihin na constant yung velocity. Okay? Right, so, mas madaling class maintindihan itong direction ng velocity kapag ginawa natin siya in one dimension. Right? So, pag sinabi kong one dimension, let's say x-axis lang. Okay, yan. And what's the convention? Ang convention natin class ay if it goes to the right, then it is positive. Okay, yan. Tapos, kapag papunta naman ng left, it is negative. So this will be our convention. Okay? Let's talk about average velocity. Okay? Pag sinabi mong average velocity, okay? So kagaya ng definition ng average speed, average velocity is displacement covered over total time elapsed. Okay? So, average velocity is the total displacement covered over total time elapsed. So, sana naalala yung discussion natin last time about displacement. Diba? Sabi ko sa inyo, paano nagkaroon ng direction yung velocity? It's actually because of this displacement. Kasi ang displacement ay vector compare sa distance na scalar. Kasi di ba ang speed ay distance over time. O ang distance naman ay scalar. So walang direction talaga ang speed. Pero kapag sinabi mong velocity, gaya ng discussion natin last time, displacement over time siya. Eh ang displacement ay may direction talaga yan because it is a vector quantity. Okay, so paano yung magiging equation natin for the average velocity? You have to remember yung discussion natin ng displacement the other day. Ano ba yung displacement? Diba sabi ko sa inyo, displacement is the change in position from initial to final. Ano? Or how much you were displaced from your initial position to your final position. O yung pinagbago ng position mo. Okay? Distance from starting point to end point. So from that definition, pwede natin sabihin that average velocity is the change in position. Okay ba yan? So, syempre, sinabi mo change in position, pwede natin lagyan ng symbol na delta yan, which means change. Change in position, x. Wala pala dito. It's the x-axis. Change in position over change in time. Okay, so itong delta x over delta t, pwede din natin sabihin na since ito ay change in position, di pwede natin sabihin na x final minus x initial. Okay? Final position minus initial position. Tapos ito namang delta t, pwede natin sabihin na t final minus t initial. Alright? So average velocity is actually equal to x sub f minus x sub I over t sub f minus t sub I. Or in other books, ano, kung mapapansin nyo, x sub 2 minus x sub 1, final minus initial. Okay? So iba-iba na symbol pero same lang din naman yung ideas. Right? Ngayon, itong change in position na ito, ano, this can be positive, negative, or zero. Siyempre, positive if it goes into this direction, negative if it goes to the left. Right? So, pwede din siya maging zero, siyempre. Pag bumalik siya sa original position, edi zero na yan. See, siyempre, walang displacement na mangyayari. While itong time naman, of course, siyempre, time always moves forward. So, ang mangyayari, yung final time niya will always be larger than the initial time. Okay? Time always moves forward. Siyempre, yung clock naman, di ba? It never goes into the other direction, into the opposite direction. Pag ganun man, I'm sure, sira yun. Okay, so time, of course, is always fast. Alright? So from this, yung magiging sign ng average velocity will depend on the sign of the change in position. It's positive, negative. Yun yung makukuha niyang sign. Yun yung sign ng average velocity. Alright, so let's have a concept test. Concept test. A person drives from Tagaytay to Manila, 75 km. Ano na to, in-approximate ko lang. I'm not really sure if it's 75 or 80 or what. A person drives from Tagaytay to Manila, 75 km for 2 hours. Stays in Manila for 1 hour, then speeds back to Tagaytay for another 2 hours. Okay? So, you look on this free-body diagram. So, ito pa, for example, you drive to Manila, around 75 kilometers siguro yung distance nila from Tagaytay to Manila, and then you stay there for 1 hour. Okay? And then you go back to Tagaytay for another 2 hours, for another 75 kilometers. So what will be the average speed? Ano? And by definition, ang average speed kasi plus ay total distance covered over total time elapsed. Okay? Based from our discussion before. So total distance covered is 75 plus 75, so 150. 150 over total time elapsed, which is yung total time na nagamit mo to cover that particular distance. Papunta at pabalik, So 2 plus 2, we should include this. Plus 1 is 5 hours. Alright? So your average speed would be 100 divided by 5 would be 30 kilometer per hour. Okay ba yan? So again, should we include the 1 hour rate? We should include it. Okay ba yan? Kasi total time elapsed eh. So kasama yun. How about the average velocity? What do you think? For the average velocity, change in position over change in time. So, syempre, the question that we really have to answer is, nagkaroon ba ng change in position? Based from this example, pumunta siya sa Manila and goes back to Tagaytay, therefore, na-displace ba siya? Yun yun. Yun yung difference between average velocity and average speed. Okay? Pag walang displacement, then automatically, wala kang displacement, then your delta x, the change in position, is 0. Right? So, it does not matter kung gaano ba katagal yung delta t mo. It does not matter. Answer will always be 0. Okay? So, that's the idea. Sana nag-guess nyo yun, ha? Average velocity class has a very nice graphical interpretation. Okay? So, average velocity is actually the slope of a line in position versus time graph. Paano mangyari yun? Okay. So, average velocity, the symbol for average velocity is a V with the bar at top, which is equal to change in x, delta x over delta. It's actually the slope of a line in position versus time graph. Okay? So if I have a graph of position as a function of time, yung slope daw ng line na ito is your average velocity. Okay? So pick ka ng dalawang points, let's say ito and ito, para ma-measure mo yung slope. Then itong change in x, right? I-divide mo daw yan sa change in time. You'll get the average velocity. Ibigyan natin ng kaunti yung slope. Right? If in case nakalimutan nyo lang. So what is slope? So I'm sure na-discuss nyo ito when you were in junior high school. Siguro your teacher started discussing about Cartesian coordinate. Okay? So kung meron ka ditong graph, syempre, y-axis to, x-axis yan. Ito yung line mo. Palaglas sa mathematics, syempre, ito yung y-axis and the x-axis. Pero when you start talking about motion, graphic analysis ng motion, yung x mo ay nandito. Okay, position kasi yung x dito. Position versus time. So, x-axis, y-axis. Baka malito lang. Okay, so, what is the slope of this line? Yung slope nito, which is m, kung naalala nyo, sabi ng teacher nyo, is rise over run. Right? But what exactly is rise over run? Okay? Consider daw, taking 2 points dito sa line graph ninyo. And then yung change on x-axis, which is ito. And then ito naman yung change in y-axis. So delta y, ito naman yung delta x. Okay. Yung rise daw would be delta y over delta x. Okay ba yan? What else? Itong slope na ito class, itong graph na ito, has a positive slope. Okay? Paano nangyari yun? Kasi delta y over delta x. Let's say, lagyan natin ng number. So let's say this is 1. Tapos ito naman ay 2. Delta y would be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1, which is positive yan for sure. Kung ito yung magiging value nila, y is 2, x is 1. Okay, kasi final so 2 minus 1 is 1 divided by 2. Divided by 2 minus 1 is 1, hindi positive pa. Okay, alam mo, kahit pa sabihin mo na ito ay, kahit pa-equate mo yan, this is 2 and this will be 1. Okay, anong mangyayari? Yung y sub 2 mo minus y sub 1 is negative, pero negative din ito. Okay, yung x sub 2 minus x sub 1 negative din yan. Right? So, kapag dinivide mo yan, negative divide by negative, positive ka. So, the point is, kapag nakakita kayo ng ganitong slope, is positive. Okay? So, positive slope. Pagpapaganto naman, syempre, negative slope. Kapag naman ganito yung slope, ay zero. Zero slope. Okay, so instead of using y versus x, syempre sa math yun, in this particular discussion, we were talking about motion. Ang gagamitin natin is x versus t, or position versus time. Okay? And in this particular graph, kapag straight line siya, yung position versus time graph, then it doesn't matter which point I pick. Kahit ito yung piliin ko, at ito, tapos kunin ko yung rise over run niya. So, rise over run. Kahit dito ako kumuha ng rise over run, o kahit dito, okay? Or kahit pa dito, dyan ako kumuha ng delta x over delta t, kahit pa dyan, or dito, or dito, or dito, delta x over delta t, I will always get the same result. Okay ba yun? So, pag pinag-divide ko to, I will get the same result kapag pinag-divide ko itong dalawa. Okay? Kahit pa ito yung gamitin ko, delta x over delta t, same result pa din yan. Right? So, kapag ganun plus, yung average velocity, delta x over delta t, would be equal to the instantaneous velocity at any point. Okay ba yun? So, yung instantaneous velocity, pag sinabi kong instantaneous velocity, yun yung velocity at a particular point in time. So, at any point in time, dito, dyan, yung instantaneous velocity ay the same, pare-parehas lang. And the velocity is said to be constant. Right? So, this graph indicates a constant velocity. Okay? So, constant yung velocity, hindi nagbabago. So, any point in time, yung instantaneous velocity niya is the same. Kasi nga, constant yung velocity. What if your velocity is changing with time? Okay? So, hindi constant. What do you think will happen? If the velocity is changing with time, then yung instantaneous velocity mo would be different at any instant in time. Okay? So, at any point in time, magkakaroon ng iba't ibang value yung iyong instantaneous velocity. Kasi nga, di ba, by definition, instantaneous velocity is the velocity at a particular point in time. So, kung changing yung velocity mo, kung nagbabago, edi iba-iba yung magiging value ng instantaneous velocity mo at any point in time. Okay? Let's have this concept test for that. A train moves along a straight line, along a straight track. The graph below shows the position as a function of time. Okay, so this graph, kapag i-interpret mo, is what? Letter A, speeds up all the time. Letter B, slows down all the time. Letter C, speeds up part of the time then slows down part of the time. Letter D, moves at a constant velocity. Or letter E, none of these statements is true. Syempre, hindi na kaagad yan letter D kasi moves at a constant velocity. Straight line yan kapag constant yung velocity, kagaya nung kanina, di ba? Letter A, speeds up all the time. What do you think? Pabilis ba ng pabilis ito? Malalaman mo naman na pabilis ng pabilis kapag nag-accumulate siya ng mas maraming position. Okay, at a very small time interval. So, for letter A, speeds up all the time. Tingin ko magiging ganito yung graph niya. If it speeds up all the time. If it speeds up all the time, then the graph should look like this. Okay ba yan? So, pabilis na pabilis. Imagine, yung rise over run. Ang laki ng rise over run. So, ibig sabihin, pabilis siya ng pabilis. Slows down all the time. So, I think this is the correct answer. Slows down. Imagine, you started with a very high initial velocity dito. So, ang bilis, ang laki ng rise compare doon sa run mo. So, ibig sabihin, yung position na nag-covered mo, malaki. In a very small interval of time. And as time goes by, what happened? Yung position na nako-cover mo, lumiliit. Compare dito. Halos at rest ka na at this point kasi, at this point class, hindi ka nagagalaw niyan kasi hindi ka na mag-accumulate ng position. Okay ba yun? Pero yung time mo, dire-diretso pa rin siya. Okay? So, the correct answer is this. Slows down all the time. So, ang bilis dito, pero as time goes by, umunti yung accumulation mo ng position, ng distance, hanggang sa wala ka ng rise, puro run ka na lang, wala ng rise. O ganun, puro, that's the idea. Okay? Speeds up part of the time, then slows down part of the time. I think this letter C would show this kind of graph. So speeds up part of the time, and then slows down part of the time. So ganyan siya. Okay. Moves at a constant velocity. Straight line. Okay? Ala ko sa kanya. Sana na-gets yan, Okay, so how about this one, how will you get the instantaneous velocity at a particular point in time of a car that has a changing velocity? Okay? So, paano mo kukunin yung instantaneous velocity kapag yung velocity ng car ay changing? Kagaya nun sa previous na concept test. Alright? So, paano yan? So, check natin yung graph ng kanina. Wherein the situation is that the train slows down all the time. Okay? So, ito yung x mo as a function of time. Nag-start siya ng sobrang bilis, then eventually, bumagal siya. Right? So, the question is this, at this particular point, at this particular point, T sub T, what will be the velocity? Okay? Changing yan, di ba? Changing yung velocity mo. So, paano makukuha yung velocity at this particular point in time? We could actually magnify this point. Pwede natin i-increase yung magnification. Palakihin natin yan into a bajillion times, halimbawa. Okay? So, ito na siya. So, kapag i-increase mo yung magnification niyan, kahit pa iyan ay curve, of course, ang makikita natin would be a straight line. Okay ba yan? So, pag in-increase mo yung magnification niya, you will be seeing a straight line. then, pag may nakita pa akong curve dyan, then walang problema. I can further increase the magnification hanggang sa straight line talaga yung makita ko. Okay? So, pag may straight line ka na, then you can easily get the slope of the straight line. Diba? Ano yun? Yung pa din, delta x over delta t. Okay? So, the way a mathematician would write an equation for this ay ito. Velocity will be equal to the limit when time approaches 0. When time approaches 0, at this particular very small interval of time, when time approaches 0, then kukunin nila yung change in x over change in time. Delta x over delta t. Okay? Yung shorthand notation nila for this is that v is equal to dx over dt. Alright? So, ano yung ibig sabihin nito? This means daw that velocity is the first derivative of position as a function of time. Okay? Now, one more thing. Notice that this line is the same as the tangent line that goes along this curved line. Okay, so mag-drawing ka daw ng tangent line dito. Same lang din daw yun nito. Okay? Sana na-guess yan ha? How about a constant test? You look at this graph. This graph shows position as a function of time for two trains running on a parallel tracks. So, meron kang train A and then train B, and then ito yung mga lines nila, yung line ng position versus time nila. Okay? Ito yung motion nilang dalawa. For train A, ito, and for train B naman, ayan. So, based from that graph daw, which of the following statement is true? So, for letter A ba? At time t sub b, both trains have the same velocity. Okay? Sa point ba na ito, same ba yung kanilang instantaneous velocity? Okay. How about letter B? Both trains speeds up all the time. Okay? Or letter C, both trains have the same velocity before t sub b, or both trains have the same acceleration before t sub b. Okay? So, you can pause the video and then isipin nyo i-analyze nyo yung graph and then think about it. Right? Para masagutan nyo. Okay, so, how about letter A? At time t sub b, both trains have the same velocity. Oh. False na kaagad yung letter A, ano? Kasi, kita mo na kaagad na yung letter B has a constant velocity. Okay? And yung train A, at this point, baka nga at-rest siya dito at this point eh. Okay, so tingin ko at-rest siya dito at this point kasi sobrang bilis niya and then eventually, bumabagal hanggang sa tumigil dito sa taas. I mean, at tumigil siya at this point. Okay, kasi wala na siyang na-accumulate na position eh. Wala na siyang na-accumulate na position. Kagaya ng explanation ko kanina. For letter B naman, both trains speeds up all the time. Okay, so false din yun. Kasi this train slows down. Kagaya nitong example kanina. While this train naman has a constant velocity. How about letter C? Both trains have the same velocity before t sub b, before this point. Somewhere along this time, nagkaroon sila ng parehas na velocity. What do you think? Oh, that makes sense, ano? Kasi, kung tinignan mo tong explanation natin kanina, alright, na yung velocity daw, na yung instantaneous velocity daw, ng isang object, let's say a car, na changing yung velocity, pwede mong makuha yung velocity niya, magdodrawing ka lang ng tangent line along the curve. Okay? So, kapag nag-drawing ka dito ng tangent line, isipin mo lang, yung line na iyon na almost the same as this straight line. Okay ba yan? So, the point is this. Tingin ko, at this point, pag kinuha mo yung instantaneous velocity niya, yung velocity niya at this point, pag mag-drawing ka dyan na ang straight line along the curve, tangent line along the curve, then yung velocity nito, yung instantaneous velocity nito would be the same as this. Nag-guess ba yung point na yan? So the correct answer is letter C. Both trains, itong letter D wala, hindi pa naman discuss yung acceleration. Okay? So both trains have the same velocity before T sub D, before this point. Okay, so paano ko nalaman na letter C yung sagot? Kasi naman, yung instantaneous velocity nito ay the same as the tangent line. Di ba in your mathematics before, ano ba yung slope ng curve? Di ba ang slope ng curve is a tangent line that goes along the curve. Okay? So ito yun. Tangent line that goes along the curve at this particular point in time, yung velocity niya ay same nitong velocity ng train B. Okay, so sana na-guess yun